And, remember what I said, you don't have to do my schedule. I'm just showing you a typical schedule, and then you would adapt it from there, okay? All right. So, but I do want to, so the afternoon work cycle, typically the 3s or 4s are sleeping or resting. Sometimes they don't sleep, they rest. The 5s, so we call them kindergartners. I don't know what terms you use here, but I just put kindergartners because that's what we typically call a child who is 5 or 6 before they're in first grade, okay, before they're in the elementary. So 5s, they get lessons. Oh, I put ration. It's supposed to be ratio. I have a typo there. I don't know if I can edit this. Oh, I can. No. There we go. So instead of it being the lead teacher with 24 children or 25 children or whatever it is, half the class, more than half the class is resting or asleep. So I just have my 8 5-year-olds or so. 6, 7, 8, 9, I don't know. Okay, remember, because they're one of the tiers of the 3 ages. Does that make sense? 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds? Yeah? All of the 3-year-olds turn 4 throughout the year, all the 4-year-olds turn 5, and all the 5-year-olds turn 6. So that's why we say a 3 to 6 classroom, because at any point in time you'll have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. That's why we call it a 3 to 6 classroom. You'll have those. Occasionally you'll have a 2.5-year-old. So you have a smaller ratio. So you can really get some good work done, okay? So a dynamic, an instructional dynamic that I referred to a few minutes ago is this, which I recommend if you can make it work, is you give new lessons to 5-year-olds in the afternoon in that small ratio of you and your 8 5-year-olds. So literacy, especially literacy in math, right? Reading lessons, new presentations, lesson demonstrations for, all the operations, linear counting, fractions, whatever you're going to be doing with those 5-year-olds. Because here's what we do. We often give new lessons to them in smaller groups in the afternoon, and then they practice. Remember we said presented, practice. Then they come to school the next morning, and what do? They practice those lessons. And you know why that is so helpful? Because I was saying, okay, well, I'm going to do a golden bead multiplication with 3 children, and Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to do that lesson with these 5 or 5.5-year-olds, maybe 6. So they come marching into school the next day. Oh, good morning. Why don't you practice your golden bead? Yeah, the lesson we did yesterday. Why don't you practice that this morning? So now, for my 3 and 4-year-olds, they get to witness and see modeled before them 3 or 4 5-year-olds like, okay, let's go practice our golden bead multiplication. So that really, really helps the instructional model of having your older children get the lessons in the afternoon and practice in the morning. All the younger ones are like, whoa, I want to do golden bead operations. It's so perfect. And, and of course that's when, we'll get to it. We need to do this and this first, and then. But our 5-year-olds quote unquote, our 5-year-olds are models for engagement, models for concentration, models for work, because those 3-year-olds are like, they love looking up at the 5-year-olds. They love being with them, okay? So that is why that instructional model is really important. Okay, so these children are sleeping or resting, and then they get up, And this is what I want to talk about. I don't have the bullets there, but I can write it in as we go. So all depends on the children and obviously on the context, but probably an hour and a half nap is going to be plenty. It's very important the children don't sleep too much, because then they won't go to sleep at night. And we want them to go to bed, and children need 11 or 12 hours sleep. So the 3s and 4s will rest or sleep, and then they get up. So usually like an assistant is in charge of the 3s and 4-year-olds. And you could have, one assistant with 12 kids, with 12 students, because, you're not instructing them. You're just kind of watching and making sure they put their bed away and roll up their mat and put their shoes on and use the bathroom. And in the morning work cycle? In the morning, yes. So in the morning work cycle, we give all our lessons, except for 1 or 2, individual. So it's not just what the 3s and 4-year-olds, it's, let's say there are 25 children in the classroom. I've got 1 child. It's what the 24 other children are doing, right? It's always, so we give one-on-one lessons. So this is a good time to talk about this. So we have this in Montessori, we have this thing that's called the up-down rule. Usually, if we have 25 children, we have 2 adults. We usually don't have 3. Remember in the Montessori Essentials document that I showed you, we have fewer adults because we want to promote independence. That's very purposeful. I don't want to wait on the children, okay? I'm not their nanny. I don't want to wait. I want them to have to wait, and I want them to be independent and be self-sufficient. So we have fewer adults. So 2 adults, 25 children. So when I'm down, as in I'm sitting on the floor, my child's here. I might be doing a math lesson, language lesson, culture, whatever I'm doing. I'm with my child. I'm in a bubble. I don't want anybody to interrupt me. I don't want anybody to talk to me. My assistant is up, okay? He or she is walking around. She may not, let's say it's she may not sit down, because that's not, we need to be safe. We need to make sure that somebody is watching the children all the time. So we always have to have one person up if the other person is down. You could have 2 people up, but you never have 2 people seated, okay? I mean, I would say never, but, not recommended. So that for safety reasons, right? So when I'm giving a lesson, my assistant's job, her first job is this. So I have to move this. Let's pretend that you're Cattery, or you're giving your lesson. You can just stay right there. The assistant, she protects me. I mean, not literally like this, but she'll make sure that a child doesn't go over and ask me a question. It's like, oh, they're having a lesson. Come ask me. So the assistant's job is to protect the lesson. That's one of the assistant's job. Because the lesson is this very precious moment. It might be 3 minutes, might be 7 minutes, I don't know. But, I've got my lesson plan, and I've got to give, a bead stare lesson to John. So, okay, it's on my list. I'm going to go give my bead stare lesson. I want to get my lesson in. So I get my child, invite my child to the rug, give them, and the lesson is like a gift. Here we heard so much about a gift in this morning's reading. So the role of the assistant is to protect me. And then we teach the children how to also not interrupt a lesson. And once you get more experienced, a lead teacher, or lead guide, I do a lot of sign language with my assistant. Lots. So I, of course, am sitting on the floor. My child's here. I'm giving my lesson. But this is not rocket science, right? This is like 3, 4, and 5-year-old stuff. So it's important how we do it, but I'm not teaching nuclear physics. So, and I'm going slowly. And so I'm scanning around the room too, just watching. If I see something, I could be like, I use my eyes to communicate all the time with my assistant, or sometimes I'll point. Sometimes I will voice or talk, but hopefully not, okay? So we tell my assistant, like maybe the assistant didn't see that this child is pouring the water all over the floor, and we need to go stop him from running the water. And so ideally, I'm not going to get up from my lesson and go stop that child. Now, does that happen sometimes? Yes. Yes, it does. Okay? But, so the answer is that it's not just what are the 5-year-olds doing when I'm working with the 3s and 4s, it's what's the whole class doing. That's why you have to build a class over time. And you start small and it gets bigger and bigger. You can't just, add water and you have a Montessori classroom. It doesn't work. It does not work. You have to teach them over time. Okay? So over time, they will be just like Jackson, who goes and does this. There are 25 Jacksons in that classroom. There are 25 Jacksons. But that's because he's a 4-year-old. That's his second year in the same classroom. That's also why it's so important to have multi-age, because they come back and they know exactly, I need to go get my work and I need to do this. And, you'd be amazed when you have your second years come back and your third years come back. They're like, they do all the teaching, most of the teaching. Okay, hello. So then at the end of the day, very often, so you understand what I was saying about the 3, 4, and 5 routine. I won't waste your time now to type it in, but I'll type it in the document and it will be in Canvas just to give you an idea of what these scripted activities are for the 3 and 4-year-olds who can't concentrate very much because it's the end of the day. They need a little extra holding it together. And we always want to watch. Remember, we go from success to success. We don't want to demand so much of the 3 to 4-year-olds that they crash and have a temper tantrum and just get all wild. No. We want to make sure that doesn't happen. So we have to have the afternoon has to be carefully planned. Outdoor time, we can have outdoor time, we can have snack time. You can have another group time, another gathering time, singing songs. Very often, too, you'll have an ongoing project, like maybe they want to work on a big mural that they're painting, and they work every day on it for a few days. And, sometimes we have collective little craft-type activities that the 3 and 4-year-olds do over time. But they definitely usually get up from nap and do practical life exercises, sometimes sensorial. But I would never do a math lesson, a new math lesson, or a new language lesson with, sorry, I'm not going to say never. Don't say always or never, sorry. I likely would not do new lessons with 3s and 4-year-olds in the afternoon.